Weird science
is the revolution.
Doctor Strange, number 15, written by Jed MacKay, art by Pascal Ferry, colors by Heather Moore, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. And we just ended up reviewing the Avengers book, and we talked about the idea that Jed MacKay books should be a little bit bigger and tighter. He's the one who's writing the main story, so he knows everything about it. The Avengers books seem to be more just for fun, and maybe have Cap fight Nazis, as he does. But in this book, this to me is the most important book this week. That if you're reading Blood Hunt, I think that this is, I hate to say, must read. I kind of think it is a must read. I think that this is one that most people should go, because the story that's going to continue through into Blood Hunt 2 is definitely going to be coming from this, because at the end of Blood Hunt 1, we end up seeing Doctor Strange get run through by Blade, and we get to see that again here and then see what is going on and what is happening with Blade and Doctor Strange. Now, I will say, me and you were goofing on it before we recorded. The idea, if you read the Red Band deal, that Red Band number 1 of Blood Hunt, maybe forget about that cliffhanger that was so over the top, because this Doctor Strange in this is just going to be cut in half.
He's messed up pretty bad, but he's not cut in half.
Just as a deal, he's a vampire, but he's not quite cut in half. That was kind of crazy, and that was just for that. You almost play off that that's the director's cut. That is the extra red.
I mean, it looked cool, I guess.
Yeah, it looked crazy. It was really cool. But here we go in that. And one thing that I think that Jed MacKay, he's not great at explaining things. He's not great at setting things up. And some things in this book, and it's funny to say, hey, everybody who is reading Doctor Strange, one of the things at the end is set up in the Doctor Strange book, but I do think a lot of people are reading this who haven't been reading the main series or had dropped the main series, because at one point, and if you want to check, go back, it's a couple issues back, where the book seemed to be canceled. Me and you thought that it wasn't coming back till June. Remember, we were doing
that was back in December. That would have been.
And after that, we've had little adventures. You had Clea's young sister in an adventures in babysitting story. Then we ended up having a deal with Victor Strange, Doctor Strange's vampire brother, who was working his way out of the Darkhold Mirror. That comes into play. But we also ended up having Doctor Strange in the world of role-playing games, doing nonsense that at the end of that, they end up getting the body of General Strange, which was one of the bigger stories in this. It's a future alternate version of Doctor Strange, and they put him in this game. I think he'll come to play by the end of this. But in the meantime...
So you're saying you could have skipped all that stuff and just picked up right here?
I mean, you could have just maybe had like a little bit of setup here, but Blade is afraid that Clea and Steven are going to do this Montesi formula. But if Blade makes one of them, this being Doctor Strange, he ended up doing a vampire, then Clea won't be able to do it, because if she does it, then Doctor Strange dies. Yep. So it kind of is that
you can't do the Montesi formula.
Yeah, but that's all this is about. But you do get, some other things involved and some crazy stuff. Again, he turns Doctor Strange into a vampire. Kind of cool, I guess, right? And he's talking a lot of crap and basically says, I can do whatever I want. I'm running the vampire. Seems like he's really spelling out that he set this up. Now, is this Blade talking, or is it somebody possessing him, talking about the idea of setting it up for so long, and even calls that blood coven like my children, things like that, very odd. And then ends up pretty much just fighting Clea. And they're going back and forth, and Clea shows that she's pretty badass. But some of the things in this, and I had a theory before that I told you, but some of the things that end up being talked about with Blade with the red eyes, that is the tell, where he says, my scheme spanned epochs, Clea, an end in the making for thousands of years. And then starts talking about Atlantean swords that he has, starts talking about the Sorcerer Supreme, says he's a warlord born. And I had said before that I think that what is going to be revealed by the end is that this big bad would be Varney, the original vampire in the Marvel Universe, who, after this, I'm almost positive. The idea, because Varney, when he ended up, and one of the big issues, if you want to go back, it's the Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme number 18 in the 90s by Roy and Danny Thomas. Roy Thomas wrote it. It ends up having Varney, who wanted to be a Sorcerer Supreme at one point, deals a lot with the Darkhold. He's a devotee of the Darkhold. Also ended up fighting King Kull of Atlantis a bunch of times with a bunch of these swords, and was, the one who...
I'm looking at it. He's a big monstrosity, isn't he, this guy?
So I think that the big play is that Varney knows he looks terrible. So he's possessing Blade. And the idea of Blade, if you're not aware, these are all the things that they were set up, but in books that a lot of people aren't reading. In the Blade book, Blade ended up going and taking and drinking Dracula's blood and getting Dracula's powers. And I think that was the way that now he could be maybe controlled more by this Varney, because Varney, through one step, he turned a lady, the lady turned Dracula. That's how close
he looks like
Dracula
one of those
was.
the Muppets from the Labyrinth movie.
Yeah, he does. So we'll have to see. Again, wouldn't it be a crazy deal at one point where Blade just kind of like rips apart and this nonsense comes out? But if I look like that guy, I might want to be Blade.
Oh, yeah. Wesley Snipes,
And
good.
In this, just to say, you're even having at the end of this an idea of kind of taking over bodies and vampires and stuff like that as well. But in that, you end up where, again, Clea is fighting off Blade. Blade thinks he's won. Haha, you can't do anything. You're going to have to deal with. And also just the idea that not just because Steven is a vampire, but because you're going to have to deal with him being a vampire as well. You're going to be caught up in all that nonsense. So what ends, Blade leaves, and he ends up saying to the Blood Coven, beam me up. Mm-hmm. Blood Coven goes. And then Clea immediately realizes what she has to do and separates the body of Doctor Strange with his spirit. So he can end up being regular Doctor Strange while vampire body is just there without the soul. Kind of a weird play.
I'm not sure that checks out, but I'll go with it.
Yeah, I know. But it ends up, the weird thing of it is, again, Jed McKay just killed Doctor Strange.
Yeah, we don't need him dead again.
Things like this. So it is a cool thing. I think that the better play would have been Clea. But he even says, and I think that it's Jed McKay trying to figure out, because even Blade says, I'm not sure if I can turn a Faltine. She is different, the whole deal of her thing going on. But maybe that would have been a little bit better because of what we just had.
I think it'd be fun.
Had with Doctor Strange. It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it would be funny if Clea was like, I can't take this anymore. I'm not doing this again, and just chops his head off.
Just leaves.
Just chops Doctor Strange head off.
Somehow, just done. Yeah. Runs him through with a stake.
Who wants to deal with that?
Or no, she just ends up like, now I really want to get this whole spell. Starts doing that nonsense. The Montesi formula, indeed. But it'd be funny, too, now General Strange isn't out, that he's in that game, but just think if he's like just walking through the maze, he's like got cookies and milk. Blade comes in and thinks it's him and turns him into a vampire. Probably have a better life. That doesn't have much to do. But leaves Clea to, like we said, makes the spirit. So now we get Doctor Strange's spirit and a vampire body that doesn't have him inside it. And in the meantime, then, the Midnight Mission, they decide to come knocking with Miles, and Doctor Strange like zips out again. It's so funny. You know that you're a screwed up character when you zip out as your astral self, and they barely bat an eye. They're scared because
normal Doctor Strange stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is a Tuesday for him. Even if you go in and say, "Oh, get this, my body was turned into a vampire. I'm my astral self," and they'll be like, "Okay, that's normal stuff."
That's how he answers the door, because he's lazy. He doesn't want to walk.
Yeah, but only not just walk. He doesn't want to turn the knob and open it. He just comes. This is what he does to make all the kids crap their pants on Halloween. He comes out, and then to make up, he gives full bars, I'm sure. But he ends up where he invites them in. So you got the Midnight Mission. I like where you have Hunter's Moon and Tiger just like, and you have Miles like, yeah, I get it. They go in. The thing, though, is, and just to go with it, I don't know what exactly Miles is doing.
What does he have in his finger?
I don't know. But remember, in Blood Hunt #1, again, a scene that went by very quick. Blade went to Miles and said, "You're the only one I would come to do this. I need your help." And then just kind of that scene ended, and then Blade went completely bad. So I don't know if this is what...
Why else would Miles be here?
Yeah, I think then he's doing side...
So he's like a double agent or something?
Or it's Blade be like saying, I'm possessed and you have to do this for me. And hell, I don't know. I don't know which play it was. Remember when, and it was the scene where people were, if they hadn't been reading Miles lately, they're like, why does he have a lightsaber? Because he had his stupid sword. But while all this is going on and hey, we got to get together, we got to team up, we got to do this, that, and the other thing, we got to figure out how we can stop this, you end up where Victor Strange, and if you haven't been reading this book, it just like pops in where he's like, me, Victor Strange, a ghost, a mind without a body, and look, a body without a mind, and he looks over and looks at what, then once Stephen leaves his body, his version becomes like a very classic Morbius looking.
Yeah, I don't like it. The nose.
I don't either. No, and he's like,
it must be dire straits for this Victor Strange if he wants to get into that monstrosity of a body.
I mean, the guy was in that mirror for so long, and if you don't know, again, that was that quick story with Bats. Bats is in the mirror now, and it kind of switches places. It's not so bad.
Nobody bothers you in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bats is just a ghost dog anyway. Yeah. He's just going around pooping ghost poops or something. that means she's wiping. It's not there. We were talking about that earlier. But yeah, so that is like the idea that we had that issue and somebody's going to say, oh man, but that really set it up. And it was, I'm like, no, it's just Victor Strange. He's going to get in the body so he could cause trouble looking like a vampire Doctor Strange. But even then, it's not like the classic of, oh no, people will think that he's a vampire anyway. So if vampire Stephen Strange was going around doing stuff, nobody's going to think anything of it and will try to stop him anyway. And I think my whole theory of that is that they'll end up having to, and they even almost spell out that they might not be able to get back into that body, but if Victor goes in, they end up killing him there. Oh no, Stephen Strange doesn't have a body. That's when General Strange comes walking through with his milk and cookies. And boom, they have a body and we get rid of General. Because General Strange, you even said, it's weird having him in the Sanctum Sanctorum just walking around.
He's redundant.
Like, there's nothing to do with him. And he is a guy who had like severe PTSD and was bad at points and whatever. Kind of a loose end.
Maybe the brains merge and they just share the same body or something.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it is him. It's him in an alternate future deal.
That's definitely happening.
Yeah, so when they get in, it'll be like, we'll absorb, and I'll have your memories of that bad future. I'll have to work through them. Now I think it really will happen. We may even have, like, issues, because, remember, it's Jed McKay going to go to Dr. Sternum from that Moon Knight, and they're going to have therapy sessions.
Oh, no, we'll skip that.
Now, next thing you know, it's 8-Ball. He's gotten a degree from the University of Phoenix. He's doing the therapy. But what would you give this?
This one I'd go 7.5 for.
I think I'm 7.5.
It's not going to quite get an 8 for me.
Still pretty good though. I mean, just to point out, we like these tie-ins more than we like that first issue. But to explain it even a little more, you expect more from the main issue of an event and the number one issue. But so far, not going to say that you have to buy everyone. I mean, really, at the end of this, you don't really need to buy this. I think anything that we get will be brought up anyway, hopefully in the main book, or you can just listen to us. But this isn't bad because you get the Blade stuff and you get a setup. And
it's early in the event. What are we going to be saying 3 months from now? I mean, I like vampires. I realize I like vampires as a genre. I kind of do, but like it's going to get old after a while.
Yeah, just... people want to see, go and listen to us talk about the dark droids that made us quit the Star Wars podcast. The only reason we're talking about this stuff is because we had enough of the events in the Star Wars.
Weird science is the revolution.